Great Demon King. Chapter 47. The Horror of 7 Bone Spurs. At that moment, the 7 bone spurs on the back of the little skeleton suddenly waved in the air with a chilling creaking sound. Just as the barrage of javelins, long spears, and battle axes were about to land on the little skeleton, the 7 bone spurs instantaneously detached themselves from its spine. They whirled into the air, dancing in an intricate, interweaving pattern in front of the little skeleton and above its head, accompanied by a series of great whooshing sounds that sent shivers down Han Shuo's spine. The little skeleton held its ground, wielding the bone knife with unsettling steadiness. Its small body capered madly, as if experiencing an epileptic fit. The 7 bone spurs drew mysterious curves through the air, moving in perfect synchronization as if manipulated by invisible hands according to the little skeleton's will. Continuous cracks rang out as the flying javelins, spears, and battle axes were all struck down and broken by the interweaving 7 bone spears. Not a single one made it near the little skeleton's body, each attack being effortlessly deflected and shattered by the deadly dance of the bone spurs. Han Shuo pinched his own waist, feeling a sharp pain radiating from his side. It was only then that he realized this moment was truly real. Not only could the little skeleton manipulate the bone dagger and face off against enemies with uncanny precision, but it could also activate the 7 bone spurs on its back, transforming them into such a frightening weapon. This revelation made Han Shuo marvel at the little skeleton's capabilities, feeling a mix of awe and apprehension. In this moment, the little skeleton was truly remarkable. The law of activating magic was a fundamental principle that governed the activation of magical treasures to perform attacks. The last time Han Shuo had bafflingly transmitted his memories to the little skeleton, at the end of Chapter 27, he had witnessed the little skeleton immediately activate the bone dagger in a fluid, almost mesmerizing dance. This had already astonished Han Shuo. But now, seeing the little skeleton activate the 7 bone spurs on its back, his astonishment deepened tenfold. To activate the law of activating magic, one needed not only a profound understanding of the law, but also a magical treasure that was intrinsically tied to the caster's life and shared one mind with the caster's life. It appeared that, unbeknownst to anyone, the 7 bone spurs and the bone dagger had become the little skeleton's magical treasures through constant reforging by the magical Yuan. These artifacts had seamlessly integrated with the skeleton's being, enhancing its combat prowess beyond ordinary expectations. Han Shuo didn't possess a magical treasure himself, and thus couldn't activate the law of activating magic. However, who would have thought that a dark creature, a little skeleton, was walking ahead of Han Shuo, and had already been the first to successfully activate it? This unexpected development left Han Shuo both impressed and unnerved, questioning the true extent of the little skeleton's potential. "Oh my gosh, what kind of monster is this little skeleton?" Fabian exclaimed in a high-strung moan, his voice wavering with a mix of fear and astonishment. His eyes bugged out as he struggled to comprehend the little skeleton's extraordinary abilities. After the flying javelins, long spears, and battle axes had all been demolished by the bone spurs, the forest trolls were left completely shocked. Following that, the 7 bone spurs that had been circling the little skeleton's body abruptly flew in all directions, piercing through the bodies of 7 forest trolls who stood there in a stupor. "Demon! This is a demon within a skeleton's body. Run!" An extremely panicked and horror-filled scream rang out from one of the forest trolls' mouths. It was as if this was a signal to retreat, and all the forest trolls started fleeing for their lives in various directions, like lost dogs. Even the forest troll leader had no more excuses and ran heedlessly in a sprint for escape. Situations always developed beyond expectations. Han Shuo had only planned on breaking out and escaping from here, and hadn't anticipated that the little skeleton's 7 bone spurs would be equipped with such terrifying power. When Han Shuo had regained his composure, the surroundings were littered with more than 10 forest troll corpses, and there were no longer any living forest trolls in sight. Good boy. Good boy. Han Shuo suddenly felt an exceedingly proud sensation and couldn't help but laugh wildly. His heart swelled with a mix of satisfaction and a newfound confidence in the little skeleton's abilities. At the same time, the 7 bone spurs whirled in a circle in thin air, and then accurately landed back on the little skeleton's spine. The little skeleton stood up straight afterwards, bone dagger in hand, and began searching through the forest troll corpses with practiced motions. It took everything off the bodies, except for the clothes, methodically collecting spoils from the defeated enemies. "Give it to me. The other 100 gold coins." Han Shuo smiled lightly as he released Fabian from his back, and asked for the remaining payment from a still shocked Fabian. At this moment, Fabian's eyes were still patrolling over the little skeleton's body, his mind struggling to process the sheer brutality he had just witnessed. He only came back to himself when Han Shuo's voice reached his ears. Just as Fabian was about to bring out the gold coins, a sudden realization hit him, and he glared at Han Shuo. "No. You dared to use me as a shield when fighting with the forest trolls just now. Your actions have completely harmed the position of the employer. How dare you think of the other 100 gold coins?" His face suddenly still with a cold look, Han Shuo's frigid gaze roved over Fabian's body. Without hesitation, he randomly plucked a javelin from the ground and asked lightly, "Me or da?" "Fabian, are you trying to cheat me?" On the other side, the little skeleton that had been collecting the spoils of war suddenly stopped as well, its empty sockets fixed intently on Fabian. Coldness suddenly emanated throughout Fabian's body as his heart gave a shudder. He reluctantly squeezed out a smiling face and took a few timid steps backward, saying, "No. You dared to use me as a shield when fighting with the forest trolls just now. Your actions have completely harmed the position of the employer. How dare you think of the other 100 gold coins?" His face stilling with a cold look, Han Shuo's frigid gaze roved over Fabian's body once more. He randomly plucked a javelin from the ground and asked lightly, "Mir, Fabian, are you trying to cheat me?" On the other side, the little skeleton that had been collecting the spoils of war suddenly stopped as well, its empty sockets fixed intently on Fabian. Coldness suddenly emanated throughout Fabian's body as his heart gave a shudder. He reluctantly squeezed out a smiling face and took a few timid steps backward, saying, "No. You dared to use me as a shield when fighting with the forest trolls just now. Your actions have completely harmed the position of the employer. How dare you think of the other 100 gold coins?" His face stilling with a cold look, Han Shuo's frigid gaze roved over Fabian's body once more. He randomly plucked a javelin from the ground and asked lightly, "Miracle, Fabian, are you trying to cheat me?" On the other side, the little skeleton that had been collecting the spoils of war suddenly stopped as well, its empty sockets fixed intently on Fabian. Coldness suddenly emanated throughout Fabian's body as his heart gave a shudder. He reluctantly squeezed out a smiling face and took a few timid steps backward, saying, "No. You dared to use me as a shield when fighting with the forest trolls just now. Your actions have completely harmed the position of the employer. How dare you think of the other 100 gold coins?" Han Shuo's two eyes were cold as a trace of a mocking smile made its way to his lips. When the forest troll leader had spoken, he immediately gave the order for the little skeleton to attack. When the little skeleton received the command to attack, its small leg bones bent down and then extended, suddenly flying out like sharp swords. The bone dagger in its hand drew a line of black light through the empty air as it flew out first. The first troll warrior rushing up was directly pierced through its forehead like cutting paper and fell straight backward. The little bone dagger didn't stop after running through the head of the first troll warrior. It whistled through the air according to the little skeleton's motions, just like a ghost out for blood. Ear-deafening whistling sounds accompanied secretive and unpredictable curves as it ran through two more troll warriors, with another strike. When the little skeleton drew close to the troll warriors, the dagger automatically returned back into the little skeleton's hands. The mere loosening of the bone dagger had instantaneously taken the lives of 3 troll warriors. The previously exceedingly disappointed Fabian and the loudly jeering troll leader were both dumbfounded after the little skeleton's single strike. They stared closely with faces of incredulity at the little skeleton. It was like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep. The little bone dagger grasped tightly in its hand began to nimbly reap the lives of the troll warriors. Oh my goodness, am I seeing things? Is that really only just one skeletal warrior? Fabian had finally recollected his wits and began to shout excitedly. If it wasn't for the gauze that had completely wrapped around him, he might have even fallen off and landed on the ground in his excitement. Don't get close to him. Everyone stay away from the skeleton and use long spears, javelins, and battle axes to kill that skeleton. After the troll leader had recovered from its shock, it issued loud commands with a look of fear. Its originally advancing body stopped in its tracks as it began to back up in cowardice. The troll warriors that had been close to the little skeleton had all retreated. As they left, long spears, javelins, and even the troll warriors' battle axes filled the air and descended upon the little skeleton. Han Shuo was startled. As strong as the little skeleton was, it would most likely be hit under such a strong barrage of attacks. but he didn't have time to react properly. Han Shuo grew anxious and started truly worrying for the little skeleton. Except, the little skeleton's succeeding fancy, incredible performance completely upended Han Shuo's understanding and knowledge of it. The skeleton moved with an almost supernatural agility, deflecting and countering the incoming attacks with ease. Each strike from the skeleton was precise and deadly, turning the tide of the battle in Han Shuo's favor. Realizing that conventional attacks were ineffective against the little skeleton, Han Shuo decided to adapt his strategy. He drew upon his necromantic knowledge, channeling dark energies through his spear. His movements became more fluid, his attacks more calculated, aiming not just to strike, but to disrupt the magical essence animating the skeleton. The battlefield shifted as the little skeleton continued its assault, now facing a more formidable opponent. Han Shuo's mastery of necromancy allowed him to predict the skeleton's movements, countering each strike with practiced precision. The troll leader, witnessing this unexpected turn of events, began to retreat, signaling his warriors to fall back. As the remaining troll warriors hesitated, unsure of how to handle Han Shuo's enhanced combat prowess, the little skeleton made one final decisive strike. Channeling all its energy, it aimed a powerful blow at Han Shuo. But he was ready. With a swift motion, he deflected the attack and directed a surge of dark magic into the skeleton, causing it to disintegrate into a pile of bones and dust. Silence fell over the battlefield as the last remnants of the little skeleton vanished. The troll leader, seeing his warriors defeated and his own position untenable, finally ordered a full retreat. The forest trolls fled into the shadows, leaving the mercenaries and Han Shuo standing amidst the aftermath of the fierce confrontation. Breathing heavily, Han Shuo looked down at Fabian, who was still strapped to his back, a mix of fear and awe in his eyes. "He seems to be dead," Han Shuo asked, his voice steady despite the intensity of the battle. Against his expectations, the students, as well as Fanny and Jean, all screamed and took 2 steps backward when Han Shuo turned his head. Lisa exclaimed in fright and then asked, Brian, are you all right?" Han Shuo started and quickly recollected himself. He scratched his head and smiled dumbly. "What happened to me just now? Even I don't know what I did. Why did this monster suddenly die? You've forgotten everything you've just done." Fanny was also dumbfounded, and then frowned as she stared at Han Shuo in interrogation. Han Shuo nodded truthfully and explained sincerely, "Yes, I felt that my brain started to hurt a lot just now and then forgot everything that happened afterwards. The man-eating monster had already died in front of me when I came to. What's going on? Weren't there 2 more monsters? Where did they go? You scared them off." Bella stared at Han Shuo oddly and replied, No way. How can this be? Why would they be afraid of me?" Han Shuo asked, perplexed and with a face full of innocence. "Brian, you become so scary after you lose your mind, like you're someone else. Even we were a bit afraid, not to mention the man-eating monsters. Good thing you're all right now." Jean spoke heartfeltly, voicing everyone's thoughts. "Don't just stand there. Hurry and pack everything. We can no longer stay here. 2 of the monsters got away. They may come back and create more trouble for us." Fanny kept her cool and hurriedly directed everyone to clean up the aftermath upon seeing that the crisis had been temporarily averted. Everyone returned to their original places after Fanny's orders and picked up the resources strewn all over the ground. The students had become more mature after this life-and-death experience. No one wasted time in idle chatter. They picked up and packed all the items with great speed. "I think it's time to leave and end this outing," Jean proposed gravely after seeing that everyone had appropriately repacked their belongings. Everyone had recognized that their strength wasn't as strong as they thought after meeting the man-eating monsters. There would be more dangers as they traveled south, and thus everyone nodded in embarrassed agreement after Jean made his suggestion. Momentarily speechless, the crew started organizing their things. They planned to bring back this time's pickings to the academy and not continue adventuring south. But just as everyone was prepared to leave, a desolate cry suddenly came from the south. The crew had packed and were about to leave, but were all gobsmacked after hearing this sound. Expressions of greed surfaced shortly afterwards, their eyes widening with a mix of curiosity and apprehension as they tried to discern the source of the cry amidst the dense darkness of the dark forest.